Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Dev Update Show, or Dev Q&A. That's Dev Insight. I got there eventually. That's what we call this one. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Agro. I'll be your host. And this is the show where we've got devs and they've got insight for you. That's why we call it Dev Insight. As per usual, we've got Pon, we've got Clumsy, we've got Ajax joining us on the desk. Hello. And guys, we have a lot to go over. This is probably the most excited I've been for a Dev Insight show. It's the mid-season sort of review, tons of changes, and a lot of the gods that were touched in the mid-season update have moved quite a bit. And so I think people are going to be very interested.
It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I think so as well. But let's start with some things with this latest update that you guys just got. Guys, we have some known issues for that. Why don't you go over some of those?
Right, so in the traditional Insight Show format, we always talk about what just launched, then we talk about what's coming up, and then we look at the stats. So for just launch, we just launched the Persephone patch. It was really exciting. I do have some updated information on a few common issues that were occurring during that patch. So the issue where some players were missing DLC, which was causing them to lose track, or not be able to access some of their skins and voice packs. That was due to a back-end cleanup on how we handle items from players. Unfortunately, it's not something we could see results of in PTS. So once it went live, we saw this, but a hotfix has already been deployed for that. It was a server-side fix, so everyone should have all that, should be back to your account. Cool. So please let us know if you're still missing anything, but everyone should have all of their skins and voice packs that were missing from that. We also had an issue with controllers and gamepad not working on PC. Okay. This kind of connects to the pop-up issue as well. Those were two different issues.
Sure.
We are implementing some tech in the future that's going to add more distinct features between when you're using controller on PC, paving the way for eventual keyboard and mouse on controllers. So we're working toward that, but a couple things that were supposed to be entirely back-end snuck into this patch, unfortunately, and these were also things we just couldn't find out on PTS. So we're working on a client-side fix for PC controller usage. That should go live this afternoon.
Okay.
And the warning pop-up, we have a fix internally, and we are currently QAing and prepping that to launch. It looks like it's going to go live tomorrow, possibly a little later in the day, a little more of a afternoon Eastern time. So these top issues that people have been experiencing should all be hotfixed by tomorrow afternoon.
Great.
And we're constantly trying, these are all things that resulted from us trying to add more features, more functionality, and clean up some things for the future. But sometimes when you're bug fixing, the nature of bug fixing is it creates other bugs. Unfortunately, That's the complicated science of software development, and that's what happened. So we're moving forward with that. Final one was Horus. There was an issue where he could get stuck into walls, and that should also be fixed sometime today.
Okay. And will that require an update at all? Or is
no, this says server side. So
okay.
All of these top issues, we really appreciate everyone giving their feedback really clearly so we could diagnose and track these down really quickly. Looks like everything should be hotfixed and cleaned up by tomorrow afternoon.
Perfect. And if you guys want to stay more up to date or submit problems that you've seen with the updates, make sure you check out the SMITE Trello board. You can find that all over our social medias. It is the best way to let the team know of any updates or any issues that you found, and also stay up to date on whether or not they are currently working on it. All right, moving on. Persephone has been released, and we're all very excited about that. But guys, she did receive some changes coming out of the PTS. Is that correct?
Yeah. So before we released her, we did some PTS changes and adjustments to her, both on our internal tests as well as what we were seeing on the PTS. Is that her early mid game, that kind of like level 6, level 8, where you've kind of spiked a whole bunch of points into one ability, whatever you wanted to really max first. We were noticing that was very difficult to play around. The base damage values of those abilities were just so high that it felt like you couldn't ever really aggress into Persephone or try and play around her garden. And I'm sure as people have experienced on live, once she has that garden going, it can just be hard to engage against her. And so we wanted to tone that down before she was released to make sure that when she was out there and people were learning her, she wasn't overly frustrating at that key specific point in the game. So we nerfed the damage on Bone Rush, and for Harvest, we nerfed some of the damage at the top end of each ability, but gave scaling back so that after that level 8 point, once you start building items, it then evens back up towards the end of the game.
Okay, so it's really just about smoothing out the curve overall. So down on base damage from PTS, but what, 5% up on scaling on the Harvest explosion damage and the bite scaling.
Yep.
So you'll still feel it in the late game for sure.
Yep, and we also do continue going forward with some quality of life fixes in the next patch, so 6R9, and then even going more into 6R10. For 6R9, we want to focus first, though, on quality of life changes before we do actually any balance. She is a complicated character. She has a lot of moving pieces, and so we don't want to necessarily buff her too quickly, but we do want to bring bring in those quality of life fixes. Like, for example, when you have 2 Persephones, it's hard to differentiate between the plants. We're going to be adding a Fresnel, which is kind of this like outline glow. If you've ever seen Amus and Cobb, like friendly versus enemy hive, they have that distinct red outline to the model.
Sure.
We're going to be adding that to the plant so that they stand out more, as well as looking to bring better feedback for when she's in her death state so that you don't lose her in the middle of a team fight. I think people got really accustomed to seeing a health bar above a god that can be threatening to you.
Yes.
And so we're going to be looking to bring that back so that players can actually see Persephone on the field. And then maybe in the future we'll look for better treatment for those cases now that we have multiple cases of characters that can resist death.
Sure.
But that's future.
Okay, things for the far future. As for things that might be coming in the next update as well, like AJ said, we usually go over some things that you may be seeing in upcoming balance changes. And guys, there's been a lot of talk around the jungle role at the pro level. What is the design team feeling when it comes to that role?
This has been a really interesting discussion, and we've been talking with the pros a lot about this in the Discord and reaching out to Olympians and getting feedback from all over the game, and even double checking some data throughout the game. And we've been learning a lot about this feature. It's very interesting. So I think what this has really come down to is, I guess, there's 2 main points that us as design team have reached about this discussion. The first one is that the current pro strategy, the places where certain roles are positioning themselves in different ways, is mostly only contained to the pro level games. We see this a little bit in ranked, but really only at the Masters, Grandmasters level ranked. Even most Diamond games, we don't feel like this is occurring that much. So there's a very specific type of meta that we're seeing at a pro level that's different from the general player base, and we have to make sure that we account for these 2 different scenarios at once. Whenever we make a change, we can't just target, we don't have a way to magically only affect things if you're playing an SPL LAN versus playing on live, right?
Right.
Any change we make affects players of all over. So we're trying to take our time to make sure we discuss this and approach it in a way that'll have a positive change for pros and ranked and normal conquest.
Sure.
Because what we've actually found, although pro players are saying junglers tend to be a little less impactful, a little lower in level, we have found that in normal conquest and in ranked, even up to diamond ranked, junglers are still very, very impactful. Oftentimes some of the most winningest gods in the game, assassins, and oftentimes the most heavily snowballing, heavily impactful characters. So although pro play is different from normal play, that's what shows this major difference, right? So that's a difficult scenario for us to balance through.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just one of those things you have to keep a bunch of balls in the air juggling at the same time. Pro level, high level ranked, casual play. It's hard to keep all those on the same.
Especially when they're complete opposites, right? So pro players are saying jungle is not impactful, and we're seeing lots of that data and feedback that shows that jungle is still very impactful.
Even the pro players themselves have said that outside of the SPL, in their own ranked games, they still find the jungle role to be extremely impactful. So even by a player per player basis, depending on where they play, it's going to be completely different.
So this brings me to my second point, which is just kind of about the more core philosophy of a MOBA. And I just think I love it when we get a chance to reiterate and discuss some of these like core pillars of gameplay.
Yeah.
Because MOBAs are complicated games. There's a lot of things going on. And really one of the most important systems about MOBAs and what makes them so interesting and so fun and so dynamic is this concept of a shared resource management, right? So there's only so much experience in gold on the map at any given time.
Right.
And there's 10 players all vying over it. And you can do all sorts of different strategies to allocate it to different people in different times or different locations of the map. And even you can have it allocated to one team more than the other, as we see in the snowball examples.
Right.
So I just like to keep everyone to keep this concept in mind as we're talking about role power, and remember that there's a kind of a fixed amount on the map. That means that generally you can have 1 or 2 roles that get an early level spike, but you can't have everybody early level spike.
Right.
So there will always be someone who's ahead and someone who's behind. And currently it seems like the current pro meta really focuses on ADC and solo getting that early level spike. But that's not the way it's always been, right? We've had times where it's mid jungle way ahead of everybody else.
Right.
And in those
Not that long
cases,
ago even.
right. And in those cases, ADC might be behind. ADC and support might be behind. So it's a constant ebb and flow. And although people might be saying that jungle's not feeling impactful right now, it's really important to note that that's a strategy that our pro players have specifically optimized their gameplay to win games. They believe they have a better chance of winning games if their ADC is level fed early and their jungler is not.
Sure.
So this kind of change, we believe, this whole concept is something that's not necessarily a balance requirement. This isn't something that Pawn, Clumsy, and I, the balance team, could just step in and fix, because pros have specifically changed their gameplay on the map to create this result.
Yeah.
And they entirely have the power on their own to change their strategy again so that junglers get ahead in levels.
Okay.
It might lead to losing more matches.
Right.
But we don't know that right now. We have a lot of ways they could adapt. The meta has been continually adapting. So I just like to explain these kind of more interesting concepts when we're talking about game design. It's not always a simple up or down balanced question.
Makes
it's
sense.
really like from the core of MOBA design, what do we want players to be allowed to do? This is one of the things we want them to be able to do.
Okay, makes sense. All right, let's get to what we normally talk about here on Dev Insight as well, which is going over all the gods that have been changed. If this is your first time checking out Dev Insight, well, you picked a good one first and foremost. But we look at the high elo ranked conquest and really take a look at what the win rates are in comparison to every other god. So you'll hear things like 7th winningest god. That means that there's only 6 gods winning more games than whatever in particular character we're talking about. Same exact thing for popularity. And just so that you guys know, mirror matches are not included in this. So let's talk Nike right off the bat, shall we? Because this one is gonna be a good one.
So I had a few general introduction things that I just thought were interesting here. I put some notes for. One thing was I made an interesting note about perception. We were paying attention to the Reddit voting tier threads, which we really find those very interesting because it gives us an interesting view about how the community perceives the gods.
Yep.
Of course, we measure the gods through a lot of other ways, but that thread is just one of the other diverse ones. We found it very interesting that every single god that got heavily adjusted in mid-season instantly found themselves an S rank, according to our SMITE.
Right away.
And I believe they'd only had a day or two of gameplay at the time they were voting for this, maybe even less.
Yep.
So they saw the patch notes and they immediately decided the gods went to S, which I thought was interesting. Just goes to show how much some of our community plays the game relating to patch notes.
Yes.
Which is something we're aware of and something we're careful about. But it was proven in this kind of point. Another one is that we see a lot of big changes in mid-season. We're not exactly sure at this point how those changes are going to affect these gods in the long term, right?
Sure.
We see initial spikes. But it's important to think just because one of these gods went from 0 to 100 in one patch doesn't mean they're going to stay there forever. Sometimes they ramp up real hard and drop back off. Sometimes they stay. So that's something, keep in mind that although we're going over the data from one patch today, this could change a lot in the future. Also, we added more bans to ranked.
Okay.
So everyone's ban rate went up.
Yes, right away.
It sounds simple and a concept, but I wanted to remind people of that whenever they're checking SMITE GG or other API sites and they're looking at the ban rate and they're like, wow, that ban rate is really high. It's because we actually increased bans. So
makes sense. Yep.
That caused some of the top ban gods to look like really insanely highly banned now.
Right.
But it's really not that different. We just added more bans. So just keep those things in mind.
Okay. Well, then let's start off with Nike because she got a bunch of changes. And I think you guys are going to be very surprised at what the actual results are. So Perception. She is the #1 top ban rate god.
Yep.
Is that correct?
She is #1 in banned right now.
And a lot of discussion about how impossible to play around. I mean, nothing you can do against Nike these days, right, guys? I mean, absolutely nothing you can do. But in reality, her win rate before the rework was #1 overall.
Right.
She was the best god in the game.
She is no longer #1 overall. In fact, she is 36th best god in win rate. So, guys, the rework made her drop.
Those numbers are
Not
none of those
accurate.
numbers are the right numbers.
Oh, that's unfortunate because that's definitely not what I have on my sheet.
Yeah.
I'll read them to you what I have on my sheet right here. She was #1 overall, went down to number 36. So that's a 35 god drop for Nike after this change. Popularity, on the other hand, was 103rd, one of the least popular gods in the game.
Right at the bottom.
If not the least popular god in the game.
I think she was 1 from the bottom.
Okay, yeah,
at
that
this
sounds
point,
about right.
all
One from
around
the
was
bottom.
104.
Then went all the way up to
in terms of how
12th.
many characters there are. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So plus
Yeah, he's
91
not. He was really popular.
in popularity. So again, just to recap, was the best god in the game,
And
all the way
one
down
of
to
the least
36.
popular,
And the least popular. Popularity went way up. So you guys got bamboozled, #1, that you guys didn't think Nike was
Surprise.
#1 already, because she been broke and we been telling you guys.
The theming's ruined. She was the goddess of victory. Now she's no longer
Now
#1.
she no longer is.
Yep.
So how do you guys as the dev team kind of internalize this change? Was this a successful one with this big rework, dropping her from #1?
I think with the numbers that we've talked about, where she has been historically one of the most popular, one of the least popular, and one of the most winningest gods, but like you said, no one really understood that to be the fact. That gave us enough opportunities to actually look at her for a rework candidate, and I think we found this to be pretty successful. I mean, she's now flip-flopped, and where she's now, in a pretty balanced state, and as AJ said earlier, there's going to be time for players to adjust themselves, to really find ways to work around what might be her new strengths, but at the same time, her popularity skyrocketed. And that might be because of now people, trying out the rework. We're going to see that trend along a lot of the midseason gods too.
The number one impact from this was we changed Nike's impact in the game from something that was passive to something that was active.
Sure.
So her win rate drop is because of the net passive nerfs.
Because every other part of her kit got objectively better.
Right.
Right.
Not entirely. Like she has a little
Rend.
bit less bonus damage on Rend.
Oh, true.
She lost her HP 5, so there was a little bit of shifting in there.
Okay.
But her passive, we nerfed her passive really heavily because that was insane.
Yes.
It was very powerful. And we focused on giving her a brand new ability that feels really impactful and is also just super unique. We've been wanting to add an ability like that to Smite forever.
Yeah.
So now players actually feel what they're doing with Nike, that's the most important improvement. That's what's going to make a character feel a lot more popular, feel a lot more fun to play. And at the same time, we're really happy to actually see her drop in balance because that's just a very healthy spot for a god to be.
Yes,
So-
being number one for a long period of time, like Nike really had ruled the top end.
and being
since
unnoticed.
her release, pretty much.
Yeah. And it's all because of
Marcus.
a passive, for the most part. Then you end up being difficult to work around, especially when your popularity is so low.
Right.
Right. No one really tends to believe you. And just to clear the air a little bit, this big drop in win rate, not because a bunch of new people are trying Nike out, anything like that. This has been a fairly big sample size, and we really believe that it's because of the passive, basically, is the big reason.
Yeah, so one of the things people often say is that this god only changed because only pros play them or only noobs play them, and we often look at god's win rate by mastery, so we
Sure.
can see like there was just as many more rank 10 Nikes playing right now than there was rank 1.
Sure.
Every god has generally a lower win rate at rank 0.
Naturally.
From your worshippers in mastery. But after 1 through 9, you tend to see a lot of fluctuation or things start to balance off relatively quickly. So although all of our gods have learning curves, they're not so steep that they take all the way to rank 10. So Nike's win rate was actually worse at rank 10 than it was at some like 6, 7, and 8. Which
So
to me says
max
that well no, to me it says that just because you played Nike a lot doesn't mean that you're going to be that much better than someone who's played Nike some. Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like if you've played the god gotten past that skill floor, I guess you could say. Once you got past that skill floor, which is, I don't know, 5 to 10 games or something with a god,
Yeah.
you're generally pretty good as you're going to be. It's more on your personal skill than the god skill. So
Makes sense. All right, next up, Thor, another god who got a bunch of changes at the midseason. Rework of Berserker's Barrage, added a new component, Anvil of Dawn. And Perception, again, as AJ mentioned, all of these gods jumped straight up to S. Thor maybe deserves it a little bit more, but not as much as you think. Number 7 top ban god, so still gets banned
Not
a
that
ton.
high. Not that high.
Yeah,
No.
overall. But lots of SPL bans. High-level players seem to really value him. But the win percentages, not super good. Again, his win rate, he was 76th, jumped up 8 spots to 68th. Not a huge jump, and is in the bottom half of the cast very solidly in win rate. So again, Thor's 68th best god in win rate from the midseason patch. Popularity, already fairly popular at 21st, but a big bump up to number 5 overall. That's plus 16. And as you guys usually say, when you're on the polls, if you're either very popular or very unpopular, to get that big of a movement either way is a pretty substantial difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially because he was free god, right? So his
Yeah.
popularity is just naturally higher than other characters in the game.
And he's just Thor and cool.
Yeah. To see like such a huge portion of his popularity go up to the 5th means that the change we made to him, people are feeling that they have more impact with him. The flow of the kit feels really good. Just like I know I've done a few jungle games with him, and just being able to like actually have access to a low cooldown ability and have to I can micromanage my in-hand cancels at different locations in the kit. It just feels overall nice.
Yeah, Thor seems to be one of those gods that a lot of people are very, very happy with this change.
yeah, most importantly here is that we really didn't make this god any easier to play. Thor is actually pretty tough to play well.
Yeah.
Once you get the hang of him, then you can be very good with him. And the way we've adjusted this god caused players who were already good with him to be even more impactful. But we didn't make him that much easier, so we don't see his win rate change very much in a broader scope. Even amongst skilled Conquest players, we still didn't see it change much.
Right.
He's been banned a lot at high levels, so it's hard to tell exactly as far as pro play how much more impact he has too. But we're happy with these changes. This god has always been kind of a pro-focused god. He's a little bit better if you're better. And the pros had an attitude toward him where it was like, he's kind of hard to play and it's still not worth it. And that really made us sad.
Right.
If we're going to design gods with high skill caps like Set
Yep.
and Thor, we want it to feel worth it when you play it at a high rank. And we want these gods to see higher pick and ban rate at the pro level. And so this change really re-energized Thor quite literally into
Nicely done.
this
Nice.
state. And, just to throw it aside with Set right now is another good example. Set's performance at anything below diamond ranked is really, really bad still.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Only diamond ranked Conquest and SPL does he have a above 50% win rate.
Yeah, it's really curious. You'll go look at, like, if we were talking about positions, like the 104 in like the list is probably Set.
Yeah.
Like he's probably 100 or lower when you're looking at like most players who play him. But once you have a certain skill at the game and you can actually execute his mechanics, he jumps, and he has probably the most significant jump we've seen. And so we kind of like that, where we have these characters that have very high skill ceilings, and we let players who are very good at the game actually show that and feel rewarded for actually being able to show that.
And to just tie this all in to the theme of the Inside Show, those gods we don't rush to nerf.
Right.
Because for most of the players in the game, and when I say most, I mean like 99% of our players, those gods are not overperforming in their matches.
Right.
So this is a pro only. We want the gods who are pro only to actually feel impactful at pro. So if they have a high pick ban rate in pros, that's working as intended. We're not going to rush to nerf that.
Sure.
So even though Set has jumped up and Thor has jumped up, those gods are not being considered for nerfs right away because a large majority of our players don't perceive those characters as needing nerfs. And we don't want to create these hard to play characters that feel rewarding and impactful at high level and then just nerf them out of play there either, right? That just kind of invalidates the goal.
Sure.
So expect Horus and Set to stay high, or not Horus and Set, Thor and Set to continue with their high pick ban rate in pros for at least a few months or so until we can focus more on any quality of life or feedback adjustments to improve their counterplay, things like that. We don't want to just straight up nerf them.
Right. Makes sense. Again, if you guys didn't hear it earlier, Thor, the 68th winningest god in the game after his changes at mid-season, but very popular all the way up to number 5. Okay, Scotty, another one of those gods that got adjusted. Number 6 top ban after she got her passive buff and the adjustment to her ultimate. A lot of people were excited about this change, I think. Maybe some high-level players a little bit nervous because they know how potent Scotty really was a lot of the time. But I think the general feedback from the community is they were excited that she got the passive and that she got a new mechanic added into that ultimate. In reality, she was already fairly strong. She was 28th before the change, jumped up 15 slots to number 13 after the buff. In the popularity, huge change there. She was 92nd most popular in the game, went up to number 10, top 10. That's a plus 82 in the popularity department. So this one, kind of the opposite of Nike in a way, at least in the win rate, where she was... No one really believed that Nike was really good, and then she fell down really far. Some people thought that Scotty was good, some people didn't, but in reality, she stayed kind of close to where she already was, even with these changes.
I would say neither god was properly perceived at their actual potential.
Yes,
before the
I'd agree
change.
with that.
The main focus for the Scotty changes were, we knew Scotty was relatively powerful, but we knew the community didn't perceive it that way. We felt like this goddess had a lot of potential for fun, interesting mechanics. She's really unique. No one quite has something like her with Calder. And the community had very clear feedback. No passive. Ultimate is weird. They reiterated it over and over again. Olympians, pros, Reddit, Twitter. We just saw this nonstop. So we've been focusing more on perception every year, or as we've gone on across the year. So we really wanted to fulfill that community request with these changes. We knew she was strong, but we tried to be careful to not overdo it.
Yeah.
She's still probably a little too strong right now. We're still evaluating if she needs nerfs or not from the changes. We're really happy that we were able to boost her popularity so much. To me, that is a sign of success, that we met the community requests.
Yeah.
Now, is the balance point above what is healthy or not? That's still being determined, but we'll get into that in the next character as well. But the important thing here is counterplay. I still feel like in the current Scotty design, she has a lot of counterplay. Previous iterations of Scotty Balance, it felt a lot more one-sided, and you felt powerless to fight against her.
Sure.
In this one, you do feel like you can counter her, and that's one of the things I think has made her frustration factor a little lower. So even though she shot up in win rate, she didn't really go up to those danger zone and ban rate, top 2, top 4. Number 6 might not even be on the list if we didn't add more bans.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. Again, the extra bans end up coming in. So Scotty, again, went from 28th to 13th. That's plus 15. Popularity from 92nd to 10th, plus 82. Okay, Isis, another god that got a lot of midseason changes. Funeral Rites, increased range, Dispel Magic rework. You know, you get the shield and Circle of Protection, healing, and mitigations. Number 4 top ban, but not quite as much discussion, at least right away,
Right.
as a lot of those other gods that we've talked about already. But boy, should you be talking about Isis. Let me tell you, win rate from 44th to number 2. Second winningest god in the game, that's plus 42 change. Popularity, exact same thing as we've seen before, 77th, pretty low, up to top 10 at number 9, that's plus 68. Guys, Isis has definitely been doing quite a bit, but I agree with the note that you guys wrote that there wasn't as much discussion around her as some of these other big changes.
Well, she didn't get a complete ability change, like some of the other gods did, so we expected that.
Yeah.
But we were definitely impressed with her results, and we've already nerfed her once.
Yes.
Right.
So
Last
we
patch.
tagged all of these changes as successful, except for Isis. I tagged as a small success because I believe we did over buff her.
Going
a
all the
little bit.
way to the second most winningest god in the game, when she was already, on the top 50, it might be a little bit too far. So I think we already have a nerf or so in place, and we're going to be looking for further nerfs if necessary too.
I believe, we nerfed her once already. As far as spoilers for upcoming balance, we are workshopping another Isis change because she was, of all of the changes of midseason, she definitively rose the highest.
Yes.
Up to number 2.
Yeah.
By the way, just for fun, Arachne is currently number 1.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you were
Wow,
going to say who the
okay.
good one is.
Nike fell
Surprise.
down. Isis went up, but Arachne has now taken the top spot.
Didn't Arachne also get a nerf in this last Persephone patch?
I believe she
Healing,
did. Yeah, she
right?
got
But
nerfed
we're
in
looking at
Persephone.
data from before.
Oh, this
that.
is why. Yeah, this is before
so
that still.
Arachne
So let's see what
was the
happens to
number
her.
1 god in the game at the time we nerfed her, and high ban rate and high play count as well. So that's just the side. But Isis is very strong right now, but she seems to have a good amount of counterplay.
Yeah, she's always been one of those gods where, if you do really well, if you enjoy playing Isis, you can still always flex and pick her and do extremely well with her early game advantage and her pushing. Now she has even more with her shield that she's getting to and the damage mitigations on her ulti, and we're seeing that immediately being picked up in the pro play, right? Scotty, we got a lot of reworks, she didn't actually get picked in the pro play that quickly. Nike kind of also there too, but Isis, I'm pretty sure she's close to 100% pick ban rate in the SPL, which might also show that she's got a lot of easy, accessible buffs and might need a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah. Makes
She
sense.
still seems like she could be shut down in casual games, though.
Sure.
And normal games and ranked games. If you focus her and get her behind early, she can have a really hard time.
Her
Yeah.
weaknesses are still there from before.
Right. Which is
not
very
quite as-
important when we're looking at gods like this.
Right, absolutely. All right, Apollo, another god that got a pretty big change during midseason. The passive stack gain increase for God's Hit, and the moves buff duration increase, which I've noticed quite a bit, by the way, that
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
flew
yeah?
under the radar. Number 22 on the banned gods list, so not super high there.
Yeah,
just kind of
pretty
a-
much not even on the list
Yeah,
at
like
that rank.
fifth,
That is really low.
You're in the second ban phase. You don't know what to ban. You just pick something. Apollo might fall underneath your eye there. But in reality, his win rate, he was 71st, so pretty low. Jumped up 39 spots to 32nd overall in win rate. Popularity, 44th. Went up to top 10 to number 7. That's plus 37 on that change. This one seems to have been a pretty good success in both, win rate and popularity both go up, but not a whole lot of frustration as we can see with the ban rate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like the resident Apollo player when I have to go play carry role. He's like my comfort pick. And I've just noticed that when I play him, like the extra stacks that I'm getting for using my abilities, the extra duration on the slow and the speed up, they're all just things that are nice quality of life things for Apollo. And we're seeing that translate to Apollo players are really feeling them and they feel good about those changes, as well as they are bringing him up in win rate, but not overdoing it. So we talked about Isis, where Isis was actually potentially over buffed and why it was a slight success. He's actually really healthy in win rate and he's really good in the popularity. So this one feels like a really solid success.
Yeah.
We're able to play up on his unique passive as well without making it feel too overburdening. I think that was a lot of fun playing New Apollo.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
These are about the most ideal numbers we could have asked for in the results.
Great success, everyone.
did it.
I like this inside show.
That's the big one right there. Okay, Ares, we made a big change to him as well. Searing Flesh minion damage buff. Number 13th banned right now. and a lot of discussion about whether or not he would be really strong at the high level. And his win percentage went up, but still pretty low overall. He was 92nd winningest in the game before the change, so very, very low. And he only went up 19 spots to 73rd overall, but his popularity did anything but a small change. He went up 60 spots. He was 66th up to number 6. And we've seen a lot of Ares at pro level play after this change, but more than anything else, it's been in the jungle.
That is crazy, and that is fun.
I think
I
think that's awesome.
We are very excited to see Ares just have a little bit more playability in Conquest. The god has always outshone himself in in Arena and Joust as opposed to Conquest. So we brought those things closer together. That helps a lot. He's just better in duo lane as well, even though we know at the highest end he's getting played in jungle. And the most important thing to show is although he changed the perception a lot, he changed the popularity a lot, his win rate is not at all in a dangerous spot. He's still relatively on the low end of Conquest play, which means that he's still difficult. He still requires a very specific type of player who knows him and is prepared for his type of more aggressive, risky Guardian strategies.
Sure.
So he retained his identity really well. He's not overbuffed to a point of frustration, yet his popularity went up a lot. That's great. That's exactly the kind of things we like to see in balance changes.
So Ares, play him. You're going to be a lot of other people playing him, but might not win quite as much as you may have expected after those big changes. Guys, that's the end of our design stuff. But overall, I think that this is one of the shows that I was the most looking forward to. And overall, it seems like a lot of the changes that were made were a pretty good success.
Yeah,
we're very happy with it.
Yeah, that was a great mid-season. A lot of the changes we did ended up working out really, really well, especially because a lot of them were riskier changes, like whole new ability reworks and certain characters. But it turned out well, and like it feels like our the thing that was the least successful was still a success, which is great.
Yeah. And obviously, like mid-season had a lot of god changes. We also had all the items as well, and I think they've been a success too. We see a lot of them being picked up all the time now without causing that much frustration. So I think this is also something to be noted too.
Yeah,
we'll keep an eye on those Arthurian items for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna keep our eyes on those. I was thinking about that with Isis, where I love the new Isis changes and ulting and double spear falling someone in my ult. That's the stuff.
Top tier.
There. Yeah, we like that a lot. We've got Hindu and Isaiah sitting over at the desk, so let's Nike shield push our way over to them right now.
See what you did there. Yes, you've got me back on the desk again for the Dev Insight Show and to break down some community stuff with Isaiah. Joining me on the desk once more, Isaiah. This is the most important section.
Most important, that's right.
Out of the whole day. Yes. Because, let's be honest, the devs have been doing a very good job as of late. Let's hope it stays that way.
They've been doing an amazing job,
I know,
right?
listen, we can't go too far because otherwise it'll get bad again and everyone's like, oh no. Yeah. So, play it slowly. Yeah. Ramp up, right? Devs are doing well, but now it's all about what's going on this week. I want a gem sale. Am I getting one?
Yeah. You want it right now.
I want it right now.
It's going live right now.
Is it?
You get up to 35% off gem packs. So if you're holding out,
there we go.
Making sure you save up for that awesome tier 5 Kukulkan skin.
Okay.
Now's your chance to stock up on some gem packs.
Well, Isaiah, I've got an issue. It's a really big issue, and I need you to help me out with it. And it's probably not the one you're thinking of.
Right.
But I have an issue because I need some more chests to roll.
Right.
Do you have any of those?
We do. We have all new element chests that are alongside with this gem sale. So the gods have kind of come together, combined their powers
this is the best
for these new
ever.
element chests. We've got chests that are themed around all the different elements like earth, fire,
water,
wind, water, heart.
Heart? No, that's Captain Planet. Captain Planet is Captain Planet chest as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, and we've got a metal chest too.
Heavy metal.
Yeah.
That's the most important one. Then also, there's a first 3 wins of the day thing going on right now.
Yep. If you win 3 games of different game modes,
you have to
earn
play
a
with
free
people?
Enigma chest. You don't have to play with anybody.
Cool.
You can solo queue, get 3 first wins of the day for an Enigma chest.
And as well, this weekend we've got 3 times Worshippers.
Yeah, this weekend, starting on Friday through Sunday, you can get 3 times Worshippers.
But something's on the screen right now that replaced myself and Isaiah. More importantly, they are some cutesy avatars that are going to be coming in this year.
We've got 2 new cutesy avatar chests that actually launched on Tuesday with the Persephone update. So we've got a fan art Kronos and a fan art Sasimi Neko Bacchus, and that is by Julia Toxi for Kronos and that Nyan Ristuff for Bacchus.
They're
Super
really cool.
awesome. So if you've got those cutesy avatar chests just laying around, go ahead and roll it.
Good.
get a free chest.
You've
free
got
avatar.
more to play with then,
That's
and more
right.
to find out as well. And last but not least for us, before the end of the show, community celebration event. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we talked about the big community celebration event on the last update show,
Right.
where the final reward is the new Kitsune Artio
Yeah.
skin, the community skin. And I talked about it a little bit, but since it's starting on Friday, this event, I kind of wanted to go a little bit more into detail. So first of all, this event is completely free for everyone to
I like
participate
that
in.
word. I like that
Yeah.
word, free.
As long as
It's
you're
my favorite
playing-
word in the
exactly.
English language.
Free
you know?
is the best word.
Yeah.
So as long as you're playing any type of game except for co-op games, you're going to add progress to that blue community bar, which is on top. It's that top bar with the 3 blue boxes next to it.
Okay.
So over the course of the event, the community bar is going to move across the board as the community plays games actively together.
Okay.
And as the community plays games, different levels will activate. And then you can unlock corresponding rewards to those levels by playing games yourself. So on the left, you can see the community bar raises as the community plays games. And then when a level activates, you can play 2 games to gain that reward.
And if we get all the way to the top, that's when you can get this.
The Kitsune Artio skin.
Okay. What if we don't get to the top? What happens? Do we just execute
We're
this
getting
skin?
to the top. You got to
Are you
believe.
sure?
I promise. We'll
I
get
don't
to the
know.
top.
I don't know. It looks like
You
a
gotta have
lot you're
faith
going to
in
have
the
to play.
community.
How long does this event last for?
So it is going to last all the way through October.
Oh, we've got,
So we've
to
got some time,
October.
yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, we may need it. Because otherwise, what happens to the skin afterwards if it doesn't make it there? That's my question.
Everyone's getting the skin,
Are
Hindi.
you sure?
Yeah, I promise.
You've got the
We'll make it
faith.
there.
I
I've
don't
got
know,
faith in the
boys.
community. I believe you guys.
I don't know. Well, that's what we've got time for this week on Dev Insight. But following this straight afterwards is going to be Esports Weekly at 4 p.m. Make sure you stay tuned for that. But from everybody here, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you all again soon.